All right, let's get started. We're just 2 minutes late here. Apologies for that. Welcome, everyone. My name is Michael Pago, Program Manager for Greening Healthcare, and this is Energy and Emissions Reductions, Planning for Success. Our webinar topic today in the presentation and panel discussions is creating effective energy plans. Every healthcare organization should have a plan for reducing their energy and identifying and correcting issues that could lead to increases over time. In Ontario, of course, this is regulated through government regulations where every hospital has to create and post an energy plan every 5 years. And possibly it could happen in other locations in the near future. If you don't have a plan, you also aren't prepared for opportunities such as access to capital, incentive programs, or other funding that might be only available for a short time, or if there's any immediate equipment failures or replacements that have to be done where there are energy implications. This webinar will focus on creating clear and achievable targets, the types of measures recommended to save energy, and organizational aspects to ensure the plan will actually progress and be successful rather than just creating a plan. Greening Healthcare has partnered with CHES, the Canadian Healthcare Engineering Society, and of course, thank you to our industry members and program sponsors, Belimo, Blackstone Energy, Elliston, Enbridge Gas, ENS, QMC, Save On Energy, Smith & Anderson, and Thermogenic Boilers. EnerLife provides a technical direction for the program, and other than that, just use the Q&A if you have any questions. And we're recording today, and we'll post this probably later on this week to the same site that you registered through. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ian Jarvis, the Executive Director of the Climate Challenge Network.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, everybody from Ontario all the way west. And we have a significant number of people from the US joining us today, and planning is the beginning of everything, isn't it? So today is all about going deeper. A number of you were a part of our annual forum on December the 4th, where we touched on these areas. Today, we're going to go deeper. What we have in mind is all the things we've learned from you over the past few years, and we tried to bring it together as kind of a blueprint of what a successful or effective energy efficiency plan looks like. We're going to present dozens of ideas over the next hour, and my request would be that everybody kind of take notes on the things that you hear that you think could be useful for the work that you're doing. Then our intention over the course of today, say if getting to high levels of energy efficiency is a planning process, we certainly want to inform today. Hopefully some of it will inspire certainly our panelists and the conversation we'll have with them. But we'd like to have everybody thinking about making that commitment to meeting their targets over the next 5 years, their energy targets that can bring them to a significant impact on greenhouse gas emissions associated with the hospital sector, wherever in North America we may be. So we see this as a really important gathering. As Michael said, we're recording it. We expect it to get seen elsewhere, and hopefully will initiate a lot of people on a successful path towards high levels of energy efficiency. Like with all Climate Challenge Network events, we begin with a land acknowledgement that we are on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Inuit, the Métis, and the First Nations people that we share these lands with. Today we're meeting virtually, and I'm in Toronto, speaking from the traditional homes of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the Credit River, who were the co-signatories to the Toronto Transfer Act back in the early 19th century. So we believe in the environmental contribution of this work, and it's our great hope that the work will contribute to our common responsibility as stewards of the environment. We're all in this together, and it's our home, it's our environment. Let's make these things work. We got a fairly simple agenda here today. The first half will be around what we're referring to as energy planning essentials. What are the key things that we think should be in everybody's energy conservation, energy efficiency plan? So we'll work through those one by one. And this again is where I was saying, I hope everybody will find some ideas of things they can add to their expectations of the plan, whether they're doing it themselves, whether they're bringing in a consultant to do it, whoever's doing it. These are the principles we have learned over time that everybody should consider in making sure things are successful. We're happy to welcome our local utility companies here in Ontario to talk about grants and incentives, but we'll refer to these kinds of programs, this kind of funding availability is there across North America. Everybody wants us to succeed with this. And then the second half of the webinar is a panel discussion where we've got three individuals from hospitals that we've been working with for some time, that we have great respect with their perspectives, and we really want this to be a discussion, a debate around what are the key issues, what's worked, what doesn't work, and one that you'll join in with. So you saw at the beginning, join the Q&A if you have questions to add to there. Michael will track that as we work our way through. And if you want to contribute now to the conversation or afterwards, we would love to hear from you. So this is very much a conversation. It's not a lecture or a presentation. Let me talk a little bit about what preoccupies us these days at Climate Challenge Network, and what we would suggest respectfully should be preoccupying every one of us. What's the context for this discussion? Why do we think these particular plans in 2024 are so important? And this is a chart, and again, this is building on what we did at the forum. So many of you will have seen this before, but we should all be deeply concerned about what this is saying. Again, it's not intended to be to scale. The red dotted lines are just directional. But the blue line here is Canada's commitment to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in buildings. So the 2019 baseline, we were around 90 megatons of CO2 a year in all of Canada. By 2030, Canada's plan commits us to a 41% decline. The red dotted line is just indicating that right now we're going up by about 1% a year. So the gap is widening. We won't take too much time today to talk about when people talk about the climate crisis and the pending catastrophe. It's sometimes hard to relate that to what will that look like. We see forest fires, we see floods, we see loss of property. We're increasingly seeing loss of lives. We're seeing migration due to all kinds of reasons, but migration north increasingly driven by climate change. The world that we know it in 2050, unless we act now, is going to look a lot different than it does today, and it won't look better than it does right now. Looking at this blue, the blue line going down, the red line going up, our job today is to plan every individual hospital's pathway to getting back to the blue line, achieving the reductions that we know we're able to do, figuring out how to plan our way forward with that, essentially closing that gap. Working for us, we've got Enbridge's DSM plan. The current demand side management plan extends to 2025. The new framework will be there in 2026. Adam will talk some more about this later, but we expect that to be much higher targets in terms of achieving gas reductions, especially in buildings, because arguably it's the low-hanging fruit. The Independent Electrical System Operator, the CDM framework finishes this year. And the new framework, the new programming, we're already seeing that. We'll hear from Michael later on what that program looks like. But again, there's programs like this across North America. Utility companies, governments are trying to help. We need to take the action to allow them to. And again, as Michael said, in Ontario, energy conservation plans are due on July the 1st this year. We've got many Ontario hospitals on this call. Hope that those plans go from 2024 to 2029, which is pretty darn close to 2030. And what we're saying, we need to meet this 2030 target. Right now, we're on the wrong trajectory. If we don't make the 2030 target, We're very unlikely to make 2040. We're very unlikely to make 2050. And we all then have to look at ourselves and say, we had the opportunity to contribute, to make a difference. What did we do back in 2024 to set the stage for getting back on track and getting the right things to happen? So these are momentous times, as Dr. Penny Ballem, our keynote at the annual forum back on December the 4th said, and Penny is a very mature, sensible woman who chairs Vancouver Coastal Health, was the city manager of Vancouver. When she talks about climate anxiety that she feels and the idea that we're running out of time, this we need to take seriously. So looking at context in that sense, I don't think there's argument that it's the defining issue of our times. I don't think there's argument that the healthcare sector is disproportionately affected. It's a major player, in part because you receive the victims of climate change. You know, the respiratory illnesses, the mental health illnesses, those find their way into your facilities, but also we're a disproportionate emitter within hospital facilities, and we have the opportunity to prove that, to improve that. We talked a moment ago about we're on the wrong trajectory right now, and policy is developing, emerging, best intentions are there, but we're still going in the wrong direction. And the common adage, think globally, act locally. Act locally is everybody on this webinar today and who will see this recording in future. You all have a potential for greenhouse gas emissions reductions. And as somebody I listened to yesterday was saying, it's an awesome opportunity to make a difference, to make a contribution, and it's a big responsibility. So today we hope that everybody will leave here committed to doing whatever they need to do to play their part, to contribute their share of that emissions reduction potential that gets us back on the right path. So it's a call to action as it was back at the forum. Today, we plan to go significantly deeper into what do effective plans look like and conversation around how do we make these things work? How do we engage the right people? How do we know the right things to do? How do we make sure they happen? So the essentials are planning. Again, this we talked about at the forum, and I make no apology for repeating because it really, really matters. Setting achievable targets. Every hospital has a savings potential that Greening Healthcare computes by comparing your actual energy use to a top quartile target. It's that simple. Having adjusted for weather, having adjusted for combined heat and power or geothermal or anything, having adjusted for your hospital type, comparing your actual consumption, your actual energy use and emissions with a top quartile target gives this chart. So every horizontal line here is a hospital, and this is savings potential. It's not energy use. So we compare every hospital, their actual consumption with this top quartile target, adjust for weather, adjust for other differences. You end up with a number, and you can call that your Greening Healthcare number. The green hospitals are doing well. You see there's at the top there's even a couple who've already beaten these targets. They're already beyond that. The ones in the middle have moderate potential. The red ones at the bottom have the biggest potential. If you don't know where your hospital is on this chart right now, it has to be the starting point of your plan. If you don't know, you call Michael. Michael can tell you. We have all the member hospitals. If you're a member hospital, we have the non-member hospitals in Ontario because we run the BPS data. And I think Northwell Health is on this call. We've run your numbers previously. If you're not on this chart, we can run the numbers regularly, but start with the idea of where are we right now? If we get to the top quartile, can we save, as the good hospitals, 5 to 10%? That's a decent target. Or should we be targeting 35, 40%? You need to know this. It has to be the starting point of the plan. So you're always reconciling back to, have we found enough? Have we identified the opportunities? Who can help us find it? Start with a clear and achievable target that gets us to where we need to go. The time has gone where we can say we'll do 1% a year because that's the best we think we can do. We've got to do better than that. Then look at your 5-year savings trends. It doesn't matter which hospital this is, but looking what happened to energy use over the past 5 years. Did it go up? Did it go down? Again, this reporting is very easily put together. It should be the starting point of the plan because it's what happened over the past 5 years. What did we set as a target? And did we meet that target? Do we meet our goal for the past 5 years? If not, why not? And how can we learn lessons from that that will get us over the next 5 years to where we need to go? So looking at this, again, people familiar with greening healthcare, this is right off the member website. The blue dots are actual consumption. The red dots are where the normalized baselines. This particular hospital had remarkable results in terms of gas consumption, and a few things went wrong with winter electricity consumption that they're working their way towards right now. But a 51% reduction in gas consumption. This is one of our top savers over the past 5 years. They are sharing that information, that experience through case studies that Greening Healthcare puts on a regular basis, and learning from that as they move to their next level. So 5-year savings trends. Then you look at your plan and say on the measures, this is what that same hospital committed to in their plan, which was signed off by an executive back in 2019. So they have things they plan to do, and their comments there are which did we get done, which didn't we get done, and importantly, if we didn't get them done, why not, and how can we do differently this time? So this kind of honest self-appraisal of back in 2019, this is what we set out to do. Did we get it done? Did we achieve the savings? This is the beginning of every plan because it's lessons learned. You know, that we can build on our experience from the past 5 years. And these are the questions. As you know, the slide deck will be posted on the Greening Healthcare website. It's available to everybody on this call. But still, if you don't get to take another look at it at the recording, take your notes now in terms of the things you want to make sure that your plan includes this time. What worked well? You build on success. Why did some projects not happen? How can we do differently? How can we do better this time? And in particular, who was involved last time and who should have been involved for us to have had a better outcome over the past 5-year period. So 5-year lessons learned, we would present for your consideration is the starting point of every plan. That leads you into what do we have to do this time? And again, I make no apology. You've seen this this map before at the Greening Healthcare Forum, but there's not very much. What we call this the easier part. It's not easy, but it's the easier part than the how. But the energy efficiency improvements, there's a limited number of them there. If we schedule equipment the way we know we should, if we test it, rebalance it, air systems, hydronic systems, if we get our boiler plant and our cooling plant running as efficiently as it can, if we get a building automation system up to date, if we do these things, these are known, these are published. Utility companies support them. Your friends from wherever your utility company is can coach you on these things to do. In terms then, we're looking forward, your capital planning has to be avoiding like-for-like equipment replacements always with low-carbon alternatives. So your forward-looking plan should have in mind when my boiler plant runs out, what am I going to replace it with? Because it won't be another steam plant. When my air handling systems reach end of life, how am I going to incorporate heat recovery? How do I get all of these things put in there? How do I anticipate the kind of energy codes that we can expect to see over the coming years as the government does everything that it can to help us get to where we need to go? So immediate energy efficiency improvements, longer term view of low carbon capital planning so we make consistently good capital decisions. Those are the essence of part of that. You can get access to this. The Greening Healthcare member website has a whole series of checklists. We looked at some of those back at the forum. I'm not going to go through any of them today, but you've got all kinds of resources available to make sure you don't miss anything. And the checklists are easy because in 15 minutes you can go through saying, already doing that, that sounds interesting, hadn't thought of it, this doesn't apply to me. And you can wind up with the 4 things that matter the most to you that then you discuss with your team as things progress. And then your plan looks a bit like this, just like the previous 2019 plan, how do we do? This is the 2024 plan going forward. What are we going to do? What's it going to cost? Which year do we plan to do it? Because you can move that around based on capital availability, and you should. What kind of savings have we got? What is the payback? What are the technical measures that we have in mind to put in place over the next 5 years? Once you have that plan and the financial picture, so you're going to talk to your CFO, to your executive now about, if we can spend $1.6 million, I can deliver savings of $432,000 a year, escalating over time. We can reduce our carbon footprint by 43%. And over the next 5 years, we're looking for commitment to that, starting with this solid picture of what we need to change, what it's going to cost. And we'll look in a moment at looking at that from a life cycle perspective. Making that business case is kind of critical. So the how to do it is the harder part. Do you have the governance, the board, the executive committee, the foundation? We had a lot of conversation and back at the forum about, can we position this kind of cleaning up the environment to our foundations, that this is something they'd like to support, like they would a new facility? Having them thinking about being active players in funding this. That might be the key to getting government to provide kind of direct support for the kind of things that need to be done. But do we have the government's commitment? Have we put in place the time, the resources, the funding that we need? Is our organization all on the same page with this? Do they understand what facilities is trying to do? And are they part of the whole piece? And do we have the knowledge, both internally and externally? Like externally, the consulting engineers that help us every day with projects, the service contractors that keep our building automation running, keep our boiler plant running, are they active partners in this? And if they don't know what they need to know, let's talk about how we train them. For that, if we get these 4 pillars right, governance, resources, organizational alignment, and knowledge, there's nothing we can't do together. Everything can then be done. And we build that into this idea of the how. So this is from my colleague, Jillian Henderson, who's working on planning with a number of hospitals right now. Once we've got the technical package and the financial case to be made, let's explore organizational alignment. Let's look at capacity building to do this kind of work. Then let's get away from the idea of a 5-year plan, and we'll see you in 2029 and see how we did. It's got to be a series of 1-year plans. We'll come back to that in a moment. And then what's the shining 2030 goal that we are setting for our hospital, that our executive, our staff, our building operators, everybody can be proud of. And we're proud to put up there on our website saying, this is where we're going. This is how we're making our hospital's contribution to responding to the climate crisis in a fiscally responsible, but a practical, actionable way. So again, I commend respectfully this to you. Take a look at this chart when you're in there. Who are all the players that have a role to play, from the executive level, through facilities, through finance, through clinicians, through IPAC, through your communications department? How can all of them be engaged, sometimes through green teams, sometimes not? How can they be engaged with contributing their part? What role do they play? Who provides direction, KPIs, who makes decisions, who influences, who facilitates, who makes things happen? And then what strategies come out of that? Like, what are the educational, what are the communication strategies? What are the people engagement? We're very conscious, for example, of the role that surgical staff are playing now in pushing or encouraging hospitals to take action in this area. Clinicians want to help. How do you engage them in being part of the conversation? How do you engage the influencers as both strategic supporters pushing things forward, but also overcoming any resistance. We hate to hear of departments saying, I've always had my air handling system, my air conditioning running on Sunday. I just came in the first time in 2 years I've come in on a Sunday, it wasn't running, and pushing back. So organizational alignment matters. The system facilities invariably run these programs, but it's not exclusively your responsibility. Everybody has a part to play. Our effectiveness engaging people is critically important. Then you get your organizational roadmap. You don't have to be able to read all of this, but there's all the functions on the left-hand side. There's the responsibilities on over the top. And you have a conversation with all of those, move the agenda forward in that area. And you identify specific opportunities, specific areas for engagement where they can help. And that becomes part of your plan. Like, are we going to train operators in year one, or are we going to engage the board in year one? So it becomes part of your 5-year plan. And that becomes your capacity building. Again, you've got a lot of resources available to you, internal and external. You got functions that need to happen. We got to report on energy use so people know how we're doing. We got to manage utility company incentives. We've got to get our building automation, HVAC, and central plant running properly. We've got to be able to manage projects. All those things have to happen for this to come true. Where are the resources, and what are the kind of strategies that you're going to employ over the next 5 years to develop that internal capability to get these things done? This is critical, because if you haven't got resources to do things, the plan is just a bunch of pages that have to go sit on the shelf. It has to be actionable, and we'd argue the organizational and capacity building parts are at least as important as the technical part. And your plan needs to address those. And then again, you get your framework here for capacity building. Who does these things right now among all the different players on the functions? What things, where are the gaps? What are we missing? Where don't we have people assigned? Where do we want to add resources? Because if the reality when you look at this is you can't do it with the team you've got right now, if you can save $500,000 a year on utilities over the next 5 years, $500,000 every year, it makes no sense not to hire the resource that you need to get this done, the energy manager. Making the business case for that, it comes right out of the plan, and that needs to be part of the presentation to your executive, saying, we propose to add these resources, but to bring this return on investment back to the hospital. So when they sign off on this, they're signing off to the whole package. This is how we get to where we need to go. We thought it all through, and these are the things that we're asking our executive to commit to going forward. So your 5-year plan is 5 one-year plans. You need to have specific goals and targets for each individual year, because by the time you get to year 5, it's too darn late. And if we didn't make it in year 1, what are we going to do differently in year 2? And if we're doing better than we expected, do we want to go further? So adjusting your plan, and within that plan, you've got the financial piece. We plan to spend this much, save this much, receive these grants and incentives. You've got organizational piece, change number 1, change number 2. You have your capacity building part. We need to add this resource and that resource. And part of that resource could be service contractors that we're going to increase their scope of work to be performance-based. That's absolutely legitimate, and it's going to cost us an extra $10,000 a year. Put it in the plan, so it's all there and ready to go. And in particular, how are you going to follow up on the plan over time? The management and accountability says we got to review these results on a quarterly basis at least, and we have to have an annual review where the right people get together and say, are we on track? Are we off track? And if we're off track, how do we correct that? And that's what this looks like. Here are all the pieces of it. This ultimately is the kind of finished product, if you like. You've got years 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the totals. You've got the financial piece at the top. Then you've got details on capital spending and savings. You've got the incentives you expect to receive, and we've got folks today to help you with that. Then we got the whole organizational and capacity building parts on that. They're all explicitly written into the plan so that when the sign off on the plan happens, it's eyes wide open. this is what we're committing to. This is what we're going to hold ourselves accountable over the last period of time. I could have touched on this earlier, but all of this from a financial perspective has to fit into a life cycle cost kind of model. So these curves are fairly simple. You've got your spend on the, your spend is the green line, so negative because there's cash going out in the first few years. Then you've got savings coming in, the red squared box. You've got the net financial play as the dark blue line. So you bottom out in this particular plan at $1.3 million cash out, and by year 9, you've got cash neutral and you're breaking even. This is the language of finance. A 10-year cash flow makes sense. And if we can do all the things we need to do and be $200,000, $1 million ahead at the year end of year 10, in our experience, that's the language a CFO wants to hear. So life cycle costing, cash flow, simple paybacks don't work with this stuff anymore. So briefly, carrots versus sticks. So we'll talk on other occasions about sticks, what we see in pending regulations. We'll talk to Northwell about what the carbon caps in New York look like. But let's spend a moment talking about the good stuff, people trying to help us, the grants and incentives. We've got Michael back from the ISO, and thanks for being here, Michael. We've got Adam from Enbridge. I think we've got them in the opposite order of that. And we did a quick scan of North America to say that this is typical of everywhere. But Michael, can you give us some quick thoughts on Save on Energy?
Thanks, Ian, for having me. My name is Michael Oriahi. I'm a business advisor at the ISO. I'm just going to provide a quick update on some Save on Energy programs. As of last December, we discontinued or rather we moved the lighting measures from the retrofit program, and we moved them to the instant discount program. So the instant discount program is a midstream program where we pay the incentives directly to our distributors. That enables people to get an instant point of sale discount whenever they get in energy efficient lighting. And with all the other measures that are part of our retrofit program, the incentives have doubled and in some cases tripled. Some of these measures include air source heat pumps. For more information on the retrofit program, you could visit our Save on Energy website. Other programs we do have available are the SEM, the Strategic Energy Management Program, as well as the Existing Building Commissioning Program. The SEM program is a cohort-based learning model, and it allows participants who have up to 3 million kilowatt-hour annual energy consumption, as well as some financial incentives attached to energy savings. We also have the EBCX program also provides some financial incentives to hire a qualified commissioning provider, and they get to receive pay for performance incentives based on savings achieved. Next slide, please. We recently launched a training and support page on the Save on Energy website, and we have 3 tiers of things that we do offer in regards to capacity building. One of those is we provide up to 50% incentives, and for Enbridge customers, about 75% incentives for 18 energy efficiency training courses. We do have other capacity building activities such as webinars, workshops, one-on-one coaching on various topics, including energy management, electrification, heat pumps, measurement and verification, and other topics. These webinars the recordings for the webinars can be found on the training and support page. We also have an event calendar that lists all the different activities that are upcoming. All of our resources, like I said, can be found on the training and supports page and the Save on Energy website at large. And if you have any questions regarding training support, coaching, you can send an email to trainingsupport@iso.ca. Thank you.
Michael, thank you. And Adam, pick up the story. Tell us why Enbridge Gas is paying us to use less gas.
Yeah, there's my smiling face. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Trella, and I'm a Senior Energy Solutions Advisor with Enbridge. Between my colleague Julian Kazan and I, we support institutional customers across the province with their energy efficiency and decarbonization initiatives. As Ian led to, I'm here today to review some updates to our 2024 commercial program and some of the new carrots for institutions. And yeah, overall, as all of you know, the program is usually split into two pieces, prescriptive and custom. Although prescriptive staying the same as 2023, there's been some exciting changes to the custom program for 24. Within the custom program, we have access to funding to support audits as well as implementation of energy savings measures, as you can see on the left and right there. For audits, depending on the customer's gas consumption, you're eligible for up to $10,000 in audit funding to help identify savings measures. These audits can include, but are not limited to, HVAC and controls audits, facilities air balances, benchmarking activities, thermal surveys, and steam trap audits. I think Ian also mentioned a laundry list of other types of projects, and our audit funding can help support each one of those incremental measures. And if just as a reminder for the last item there, for steam trap audits, if you haven't already done so, please book them in for this heating season so you're prepared for the summer. And then as a quick reminder, Julian and I can provide energy audits at no charge. So from boiler plant walkthroughs to HVAC system analyses, we can uncover opportunities, compile energy savings calculations, and generate business cases. So that is on offer to you as long as you keep paying your gas bill. Moving forward from that, on the custom side and implementation, the program's been updated to align with decarbonization initiatives, and we can fully support electrification projects. And these include, but are not limited to, active heat recovery, hybrid heating, heat recovery chillers, and say, for example, electric clean steam generation, etc. We've also obviously got our typical bread and butter on the boiler controls and upgrades, waste heat recovery, etc. In addition, given to the recent closure, I think, of the CSA Z317, the draft review, we're also super excited to help support the future implementation of adiabatic humidification in the effort to replace steam humidification moving forward. So that'll be quite exciting. We're looking forward to that piece. Regarding the dollars and cents of the whole thing, exciting changes for this year. So initially, we have 25 cents per meter cube for the first 400,000 cubes of gas saved. And then new for this year, 10 cents per meter cube for every subsequent meter cube of gas saved, up to $500,000 per project. And obviously this is capped at 50%. So obviously we're looking at targeting much larger savings projects, and again, in line with the decarbonization initiatives. Next slide, please. And so just rounding things out, overall, we want you to leverage our incentives, not only just to stretch your HERF dollars a little bit further, but obviously try to decarbonize as quick as possible. So please contact us as soon as possible in your planning cycle to get us involved. A couple closing remarks. For limited time, we could also offer controls projects, enhanced incentives for controls projects at 50 cents per meter cube, up to 75% for the upgrade costs. And building on what Michael had mentioned in his program there, our incentives can be stacked on Save on Energy incentives, so such as the existing building commissioning program or anything else there. So typical projects would usually include HVAC, where there's both savings on the electrical side, say for VFDs, and on the air side, pre-treating outdoor air less and such like that. And that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adam. It's so sometimes this, how much we have to get done by 2030 can be a little daunting. It's always encouraging to know there's help out there, and it's not just Ontario. We did a quick scan. So our member hospitals in Manitoba, Alberta, they know these things better than we do. But the same help is there in British Columbia. BC Hydro has this program in New York. Both the utility companies and NYSERDA have their support. People are looking to help us with this, but the leadership always has to come from the individual hospitals. And as challenging as that is, that's the way the world works. Want to get on to looking fairly practically at from a hospital facility manager, facility director standpoint, what do these things look like? What has been the experience? I'm going to start, introduce first our panelists. I think, Michael refers to them as an expert panel. I think, discussions with all three of you, you make clear you're not experts. Nobody's quite an expert here at this. If they were, then we'd have the problem licked. But these are experienced and capable people in hospitals that we have high regard for. Ontario Shores in Whitby is the highest savings hospital that we recorded over the past 5 years among the 65 or so Greening Healthcare members. So delighted to have Rob, and I'm gonna lead off with you in just a moment. But Chris Mackey and looking after one of the most improved new hospitals in Kingston, the Providence Care Facility in that location, as well as some older facilities, and Savan, who's moved from excellent areas from performance contracting to Infrastructure Ontario to now taking hold of the massive redevelopment happening at the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto. So great experience, really grateful to all three of you for sharing time today. And Rob, as promised, let's start with you. Your biggest successes, your biggest challenges, the things that the hospitals on this, listening to this webinar would want to know. What got in the way? What were the challenges? What are the things that made your people feel the best?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. By far, the biggest success here is the engagement of the frontline staff that I have. I'm blessed with a sizable and well-trained frontline staff, and a lot of the savings that we've seen over the last 5 years have all been operational in nature. A couple of capital projects, lighting retrofits and that, but we've had a lot of success with just them identifying areas where we can turn lights off, where we can, turn HVAC off and night setbacks and, things like that. We are in the middle of, we've shut down our steam plant. We had our cogen operational and kind of dialed in. So we've shut our steam plant down, and I've left it in the hands of my operators that run the central plants to dial that in, get our steam plant shut down. How do we get the right heat going in the right direction, coming from the CHP? So, their buy-in, their engagement, and kudos to the senior management team here as well for celebrating those successes. They've come for lunches and awards presentations, and that just keeps them engaged and know that their work isn't going unnoticed, right? We're not just saving money, we're actually kind of changing what we do here. And success has kind of bred success here, I think, in this area. We've had so much savings on the utility sides. It's driving other conversations about waste diversion reports and compost and things like that we don't really talk about it with Greening Healthcare, but it's an important part of the puzzle as well. So that's the key successes for me, I think. Challenges, resources can be tough in a hospital, right? Our project folks are great as well. They kind of obviously had some problems during the pandemic. They couldn't get a lot of projects done and off the ground, so there was a backlog, which we're slowly working through. But resources can be a challenge as well. Same with my frontline staff. They're out there identifying problems and how we can better sequence and how we can better run the building. But at the same time, they're also responsible for troubleshooting HVAC calls, and there's a plumbing issue and they get pulled away, right? So resources are a challenge, in the industry and just running any kind of real estate.
Thanks, Rob, and we'll come back to you on a couple of those things. But sources of objective advice, Savan, can you pick up on that? So you've got two major new buildings. You've got the old facility that is still part of the conversation. You've got phase 1D coming on stream right now, and so many opportunities. Where do you turn for advice? There are the consultants of record, service contractors. You've got your P3 partners.
Correct.
Where do you look for the knowledge of what are the best things to do?
I think we all realize that energy is a community of practice, and the help that we get comes from a variety of sources. So 43% of our main campus is managed under a P3 contract, and we have the benefits of two large energy service companies that provides energy guarantees and a dedicated energy manager to realize those benefits. The other areas where we turn to is also like Rob, our operating team. We have the chance of having some energy champions and people that just want to do the right things, whether they have the training or not, they are passionate, and they will be spending time refining the operating protocols, ensuring that when we replace equipment, each recovery is integrated in it, and that the schedule of ops is working well. And that helps us. That's helped us all. And then we have also the benefits of professional networking, like our peer hospitals, obviously the Greening Healthcare, ECNG, our energy service providers, and we also have workshops, seminars online. It's a community of practice, so we're pooling resources and knowledge and expertise and lessons learned to make sure that we're going in the right way and we move the needle. We won't make massive leap, but we'll move the needle in the right direction.
And so then your energy champions, are they on the hospital staff or are they on your P3 partners?
I will plead the fifth on this one. We are building a community of practice, which means collaboration, which means that everybody has what we're asking of them, because we obviously have, we're limited by a contractual constraint, is we are building that collaboration and driving the discussion and the engagement.
Okay, so
no one is expecting to raise our energy efficiency by themselves, and our redevelopment team also got to know, and that's I'm not the responsible party for that. The people have done a great job. Is that currently the main campus, 70% of buildings are LEED, so high performance building. And once 1D comes on board, 88% of the main campus will be meeting the LEED minimum gold. So we'll be vacating all the buildings that are not as energy efficient and certainly not green, and not greenhouse gas, I'm going to say friendly, and we're moving into new buildings. And the envelope has been pushed. So community.
Yeah, even though they're new buildings, there's still a lot of work to do, a lot of progress to be made.
They will be occupied in 2028 and 2029. They're under constructions. It's the largest investment that CAMH has made to date. It's not fully funded by the government, and it's north of $2 billion. So we're investing in facilities that reflect the environment we're in and our commitment to an efficient, decarbonized, and sustainable future for everyone's benefits.
Thanks for that. Chris, you're another success story with this. Your New Providence facility, again, P3 contract in Kingston, is the most improved from when it opened of all of the new hospitals that we're tracking. Talk about successes and challenges with that journey.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah. So we're very proud of our new hospital site. I say it's new. We're, I think, in year 8 of operation now. My observation, obviously coming from hospitals that were quite old before we moved into the new facility, one of the huge successes comes with the performance contract structure of the P3, and it drives behavior. It's intended to drive behavior that we're actually seeing. So our service provider is very engaged. They take this stuff seriously, and they've resourced their team appropriately to be able to drive them to do these things on a daily basis. So, one of the things that I think is giving them the heads up on this is they have a dedicated building automation specialist on their team. And so his job is every day keeping an eye on that building automation system and really almost exercising a continuous commissioning process. So they're able to deal with things in real time and tweak the system so that they're performing at their maximum all the time. They also have an energy manager, not full-time dedicated to the project, but that resource obviously gives a lot of strategic advice and guidance to the team on the site. And so they're able to, move forward with these projects seamlessly and without getting tied up in some of the governance problems that other hospitals are facing. And the other key piece there is their facility manager. He gets it. So he understands the importance of this and impresses upon his team the importance of paying attention to these things every day. And I think those things combined are why we're seeing a lot of the success that we are seeing in our new hospital.
It's been quite dramatic. And they fixed some original design issues, right? I remember the control valves on fan coil units, that kind of thing.
Correct.
How together did you make the business case for that despite the project agreement?
Yeah, so that, I have to give 100% credit to our service provider on that. This was an issue that in the first year of operation, they were struggling with the performance of their heat recovery plant. And so they brought some expertise in to review the system, and they identified a lack of control valves on the hot water system. So they basically took it upon themselves to figure out what they needed to do. They presented their own internal business case, and they made the case internally to get the funding to do that. They didn't come to the hospital and ask for additional money. Obviously, just with it being a performance contract, it was their risk, their responsibility to take care of it. And so, we're really seeing the benefit of the P3 contract model in that way.
Okay, that's great. And Rob, making the business case, you don't always get your projects approved, do you? What's that process? And do you think there are ways of better presenting the business case to senior management that can allow more capital projects to go ahead?
Yeah, we've been kind of turned down for a couple of projects. I think some of the challenges, again, we talk a lot about money, right? Cash flow and simple paybacks and that. And for, someone in finance, to be fair, simple payback is what they do and what they look at, right? But I think we're starting to change this conversation, especially with our upcoming 5-year ECDM plan. Not only dollars and cents, but, greenhouse gas emissions, right? How can we reduce those? That's what people want to look at and see. And talk about a business case. The cost of not doing some of these measures is going to start to add up, right? We're missing incentives, perhaps. Carbon taxes is here to stay, I think. So just explaining it in a way that it's not only dollars and cents, right? It's how we perform. It's our effect on the community and the environment and the planet, and trying to change that way of thinking.
And Michael, are there any questions coming from the audience at the moment that kind of belong here that we can fit into this conversation?
Not for the panel, no.
Okay. So you're fielding all the other questions that always come. That's
right.
Good. Looking at the idea of internal allies and support, I think in conversations, that's new ground for all three of your facilities. And I think it's more surgical staff and so on, where we're seeing this kind of real drive for pushing the sustainability agenda. So Sivan, is this going to be an important area going forward to get more people engaged to within the CAMH community as enablers, as facilitators, as encouragers, as supporters?
I would say yes, they're the front line. Technology is great, but technology without people doesn't do anything. I think our best bang for the buck, is to actually reduce the demand at the point of use, which is in the end of the clinicians, the patients in a certain way. But we have to reduce that before we start replacing, the same size equipment with a similar size. That would be the intent. Whether we'll get there by July this year remains to be seen, but certainly we have to make progress. And and find our energy champion within each department that may have able to engage and have an impact.
And similar question for you, Chris, and this will be the closing one for the panel as we step along with it. Would be, to what extent have the staff of Providence Care engaged with this, and what do you think are the prospects for them for getting greater involvement, greater enablement of the work that you're doing from the medical staff, from the rest of the staff within the facility?
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Providence Care has actually had a fairly active green team for a number of years.
Okay.
We did go on hiatus through the pandemic, and just because we were focused on other priorities, but we've actually just recently relaunched that team, and we have probably about 30 staff from across our organization, and that's from hospital, from long-term care, and from community. And we're quite excited about this actually, because there seems to be a lot more interest in this issue across the spectrum of our staff. And so we're looking to harness that and try to engage the champions to go out and engage their team members to try and bring new ideas and discussion amongst the team members to try and focus on what they can do in their day-to-day life at work to address some of these issues.
That's great, Chris, and thanks. And Rob, I'm not going to come back to you on this because you opened off with your biggest successes have been the engagement all the way from the CEO down to every individual operator being part of making it happen. And just to give away the punchline, the 50% reduction in natural gas and emissions that we looked at the beginning of this, that is Rob's facility at Ontario Shore. So the results do speak for themselves, and it's a very inclusive, and I would think from that standpoint, Rob, a very enjoyable and rewarding experience for you kind of leading that effort.
Yeah, it's been great. And again, the buy-in we get from, my boss's boss, all the way down to the people that report to me, the frontliners, just keeps the momentum going.
Right. So once again, there's never enough time for these conversations. And
we do have one question if we have maybe 1 minute to get to it,
Yep.
Either yourself or one of the panelists. How can we get our consultants to be better educated on energy savings and better design for our systems?
Okay, I think what I'm going to do, one, I think that would be a very interesting conversation. We have a number of consultants on this call. We know that for a fact. It'd be great to throw that out there after this for that conversation, because where hospitals do turn for support, are they consulting engineers? And it's not the first time we've heard that question of how up to date are we with current best practice around the operation of facilities as well as the redesign project. So I don't think in the time we have left we can handle that. But thanks whoever asked the question for asking that question. I think it's a challenge to all of us. To us, are we doing enough to service contractors? Can you do more to help move the needle? Across the board on those kind of plays, and the consulting engineering community, they are absolutely a huge part of the solution, and we've all got more work that we can do along the way. Let me just close this, first by thanking the panelists. I say there's never enough time for these conversations, but thanks not just for today, but for the time you've taken with us talking about this before. We value your advice and your guidance, and believe me, we're going to stay in touch as all this story unfolds over time, and we welcome your leadership with this kind of planning. Let me just get rid of this annoying look. So for the webinar today, again, the recording will be out. Let me just mention what Greening Healthcare is planning to do. So we're active players in this role. To join us, every one of you who is not participant, industry players, hospitals, consider 2024 is that the year to join us. Our calendar of events, you'll find them at greeninghc.com. Everything is up there. The recording of this webinar in a few days will be be up there. Previous webinars, recordings of the Greening Healthcare Forum. There's a lot of useful content that can help you get where you're going. You can see our planned webinars coming up for the year. There are 4 of them. This is the first. The idea of what are the immediate measures everybody can do. We're working on that one for April the 10th. July 31st, we want to come back with who's making the most progress since. So this is about the time all these Ontario plans are posted. Who's making the biggest savings? What are they doing? So that can be plugged in. And once again, in September, we'll be back with our new hospital performance webinar, still expanding. So you remember we went from Ontario, P3 hospitals, the latest report, which is about to be put online. That report's looking at Alberta hospitals, California hospitals, New York hospitals, Manitoba hospitals, and we'll continue expanding that web. We're looking for what are the top performing hospitals in North America and what can we learn from them. That webinar is taking place September the 25th, so please put these dates. Our summer workshop, we're expecting to hold that in one of our member hospitals in one of their facilities. The summer workshop is roll up your sleeves. What are the practical, immediate things that everybody can be doing? And then November the 4th this year, a month earlier than in 2023, back at the Delta Hotel, we have the Greening Healthcare Forum. Put that date in your books. This is our big strategic effort of the year. And again, take a look at the recordings from 2023, and you can expect more of the same in 2024. And once again, any non-member hospitals on this call, if this is the time to consider this, I'll give you the contact in a moment. And a lot of the work that we do is only made possible by the support of our sponsors and our industry members. So staying in touch, you know who we are. Michael, you've met already. He has managed Greening Healthcare for the past decade. He's the point person for everything. Heather Bell is if you're interested in getting involved, Heather is our contact person. Emin does all the technical work. He keeps the program on track and makes sure that we're current with all the things that are important. I'm Ian Jarvis. I'm the Executive Director of Climate Challenge Network, and thank you all for joining today. Our very best wishes for your plans, and hoping today we've got commitment to let's deliver the readily available savings we can between now and 2030, bend the curve and make the good things happen. Thank you so much. Have a great day.